The state outlines the evidence it plans to present in the involuntary manslaughter trial of actor Alec Baldwin. Baldwin is accused in the fatal shooting of cinematographer Halyna Hutchins.
Now, Court TV has received a new court document of what evidence the state wants to use in Baldwin's upcoming trial. According to this filing, this notice of intent to show evidence of acts committed by the defendant, it includes, they claim that he used the firearm to point at people on the set, that he put his finger on the trigger when handling the firearm, pressured the crew members to get things done very quickly. All of this in a state filing where they're asking the judge to know that the court is, or that they rather, the prosecution is planning on using these incidents. They say all of these acts happened between October 12th and October 21st of 2021. Of course, the 21st is the day that the death of Halyna Hutchins happened. And the state contends that all of these are admissible to show a lack of accident or mistake on Alec Baldwin's part.
Yeah, but important to note that in that police interrogation, Alec Baldwin explained what happened and denies ever pulling the trigger.
I went to lunch. She disarmed me. I sat down.
She being
Hannah, the armaments person. She was always handling the guns 99% of the time. So I would, if I had a cosmetic rifle with no rounds, I'd hand it to one of her assistants. I'm sitting there, she disarms me, we go to lunch, we come back to lunch, and they hand me the revolver, the Colt.
And I just like so name, it's Hannah again.
They arm me, and you're assuming, as we've done every time, that it's a cold gun for the rehearsal. And I put the gag in the shot, you're the camera, because I have a coat, and I have a holster, and I pull the coat over, and I kind of cup my hands like I folded my hands. And then I'm going to slowly sneak the revolver, the Colt out, and turn and shoot these other guys, or try to shoot them. I take the coat over the thing, the camera's there. I believe, my recollection is she was there, turned a bit, like talking to him. So I think she was hit in the right armpit. But this is all I know, and that is that I take the gun out in the rehearsal. Really, he wants it very dramatic and very slow, kind of sneak up on them. I take the gun out, and as I take, as it clears, as the barrel clears the hole, turn and cock the gun over here. I turn and cock the gun goes off. It's supposed to be a cold gun. Nothing. No flash charges, nothing. Now, this is a puzzle to me. And this is making me very emotional now, you know. But in my time, and I'm older now, but when I was younger and I was shooting guns and films, I've never seen a theatrical flash round where the material went through someone's armpit, came out their body, and hit somebody else in the shoulder.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if your department is prepared to go find out what comes out of his shoulder surgically. Is that a live round?
That's what we are actually looking at.
Is that a live? Because I don't, it doesn't make any sense otherwise.
Yeah.
It hits her in the armpit, comes out her shoulder, goes into his shoulder, and he just told me on the phone, I talked to Joe. He said, they showed me the x-ray, and the shape of the thing in my shoulder is the shape of a bullet. I take the gun out slowly, I turn, I cock the pistol, bang, it goes off. She hits the ground. She goes down. He goes down, screaming. They were standing in positions they wouldn't ordinarily be in because they assumed it was an empty, cold gun. We weren't shooting, we were rehearsing. That's a vital difference. So if she's here, if the camera's here, and she's standing here talking to the guy, and I'm on a bench here, and Joel's behind her, and this is not proportionate because obviously the camera's not as big as her body, but I draw the gun slowly and aim off camera, and there's supposed to be nothing in there. So she's not protecting herself and standing off. I'm shooting in a direction, and everybody is supposed to be to that side of the camera. There's nobody in my line. Nobody. And so when I shoot the gun, so in the rehearsal, I'm assuming I have an empty gun, and the gun goes off. She's right in front of me.
Prosecutors are also trying to force weapons supervisor Hannah Gutierrez to testify in Baldwin's involuntary manslaughter trial.
And you'll remember she is already serving an 18-month sentence for her conviction on the same charges that Baldwin faces. In its filing earlier this week, the prosecution admits that Gutierrez's testimony could help or hinder Baldwin's case, but they say they still want the court to compel her, force her to testify. And if she does, it will give prosecutors the chance to cross-examine her, something that didn't happen during her trial.
That's right. Now, if Gutierrez refuses to testify, Baldwin's attorneys could use her previous statements as exculpatory evidence. Two of those statements came during her police interview after that fatal shooting. In one interview, she admitted that she should have checked that gun again.
What time did you go to lunch?
Probably about like 12:30. It's pretty much on the dot.
And then, so after that, Sarah pulled them out.
Yeah.
Did you see her check them, or did she just hand them to you and that's when you check the rounds?
She just handed us, we all took them, we took them in the bag to the set, so we didn't check them there.
When you checked it, it was on set or prior to you transporting?
Yeah, it was on set. I didn't really check it too much after lunch, you know, because it was already locked up and everything at lunch. But yeah, I checked it and put in that last round and sent it in.
Now, the court is going to be discussing the use of immunity for Gutierrez's testimony on Friday when they have a hearing in this case. Baldwin's actual trial scheduled to begin with jury selection on July 9th.
And we are all going to be waiting with bated breath because everybody wants to see what's going to happen to Alec Baldwin. Now, joining us to discuss is armor and prop master Dutch Merritt. Dutch, we can't thank you enough for joining both of us here today. So many questions. You know, I want to start with the fact that Alec is interviewed and says it should have been a cold gun. Sure, theoretically, it should have been. We have Hannah Gutierrez saying, I should have checked that gun again. Well, hindsight, right? Of course. The gun should have been checked again. Put those things aside, though, and talk to us about the fact that Alec Baldwin has said more than once he never pulled the trigger on the gun. Is that even possible?
Well, the design of these guns from 1873, I wasn't really familiar with these old guns that well, but I have some friends that are what they call cowboy action shooters, and they compete with these old Western guns. And one of my friends came to me and said, hey, I know exactly how you can drop the hammer without pulling the trigger. And he demonstrated it to me, and I found it repeatable. If you pull the hammer almost all the way back, the trigger has to engage. It has to go slightly forward and then backward. If you impede its movement forward, you don't have to pull the trigger. You can simply impede its movement slightly forward. The trigger will not set on the latch, and the hammer will not be locked back into place. So, and I do have a gun I can demonstrate for you if you'd like.
Yes. Right, Julia? Yes,
go ahead.
please.
I've seen your demonstrations before, Dutch, so we appreciate that you're able to walk us through this with a cold gun.
Thank you. So as I pull the hammer back, I want you to watch the trigger. The trigger will go slightly forward during this action. And then as I go to latch it all the way in the last space, it has to go forward in order to lock in. If you prevent it from going forward, and I can just pinch it sideways here and prevent it from traveling forward, the hammer will drop. I didn't have to put any pressure on the trigger. I don't have to pull the trigger per se. You just have to prevent it from going into its space. And so these Western shooters have told me that they've had that experience where you sort of bind the trigger accidentally with perhaps the meat of your finger, and it's just enough to keep it from going into its latch position. And if it falls forward, it goes all the way forward onto a cartridge into the final place. So it is possible to have that hammer drop without technically pulling the trigger.
You know, Dutch, I have asked this question of so many different people. We have had guests who've come on who have been law enforcement trained. They have been firearms experts. They've said over and over, and we even have an FBI investigation in this case where the authorities found that it could not have been the trigger being pulled. What do you think they perhaps have missed based on what you've learned? And do you think that could be coming up in this trial once things start against Alec Baldwin?
Well, my understanding of the FBI investigation is that their role was to determine was the gun functioning as it was intended from the manufacturer. And I think they established that clearly, that the gun works as it was designed. But when you break down the physics of the actual action of when you operate these guns and you pull the trigger, you really have to break it down frame by frame, if you will, to show that the trigger has to be able to go forward in order to latch. Have you ever heard of the Swiss cheese model of accident causation?
I have not.
So this is a fascinating thing. I follow, my mom's an airline pilot, so I've sort of followed aviation very closely. And in airline accident investigation, this model of the Swiss cheese model of accident investigation, picture a slice of Swiss cheese, there's holes in it. And the next slice, the holes are in another place. And the next slice, there are holes in another place. Each one of these slices of cheese might be a line of defense from an accident happening. So in the airline industry, the first slice of cheese might be the design of the aircraft, and the next one might be the manufacture of the aircraft, and the next one might be the training of the pilot. The next one may be the pilot's, did they get enough sleep? And the next one may be the mechanics or the manuals of it. Each one of these is a line of defense, and the odds that all of these holes would line up at one point and allow an error to make it all the way through every line of defense are pretty small. And I think what happened here is those holes lined up. You had bad hiring practices. You have a person that provided the guns and ammunition and blanks and dummies that may not have checked them properly. You have the armorer who was certainly not qualified to be an armorer. I would say she was at best a gun wrangler. You know, her qualifications that her dad was a big guy in this business. Doesn't make her good at it. Just the hiring practices, the handling. And then Dave Halls, the first AD, apparently, according to testimony, has inserted himself in that process, took the gun from the armorer, handed it to the actor, telling him it was safe and cold. And there's the actor doing what he's done for 40 years, handling a prop gun confidently, as he's been able to do. As soon as we hand him a gun and tell him it's cold, you need to be able to do whatever you want with that. You're the actor. You're in that character headspace. You're not now a safety authority. So he was set up for failure after a whole series of defenses were missed.
But that leads to the very question. I mean, there is no Hollywood exception in the law. What I mean by that is if you point a gun at someone and shoot them and kill them, well, then that can be a criminal matter. Should there be a Hollywood exception? Do you think that because he should have expected it was a cold gun and it wasn't, that he shouldn't be criminally responsible?
People from the shooting world regularly tell us that we do it wrong, and they regularly apply their shooting range rules to a movie set, and they just don't apply. On a film set, we may take an actor and cover him with gasoline and light him on fire and have him walk down the street. That is also not acceptable in general society. But we have methods and we have practices that enable us to simulate destruction and death and murder, but it's completely simulated. So when they say you never point a gun at something you don't wish to destroy or someone you kill, that's true in the real world. I come out of real world shooting competition, absolutely, 100%. However, in the film world, when have you seen a gun pointed directly at the camera? It happens all the time. We don't want to destroy the camera. Occasionally guns are put right to a person's head for an assassination attempt or a suicide. We have measures we take that allow us, with blanks or special Lexan protective screens, that allow us to point a gun in a way that you would never do in the real world. So regular world walking down the street laws are not what we create fantasy. We safely create an imaginary environment where you can come up with all manner of destructive possibilities and nobody really gets hurt when it's done the way we do it safely.
And all of this conversation that we're having, all these details, it's going into a different environment, that courtroom environment where this trial is going to be starting just next month.